Hey guys! Well, here we are again, another Wonderland Wednesday. I want to know, how was your day? I don't know, I guess my day was a little crazy. Mob stormed Capitol Hill. I bet the day was a little crazy for you guys too, huh? Should we do what we do best? Talk about cartoons? Yeah, maybe throw a little levity into this wacky Wednesday? I hope you guys are hanging in. I hope you're staying safe. I know that everything feels a little unhinged lately, and I want you to know that I'm here for you, and I see you, and I love you. So today's guest, actually, I think you guys are going to be pretty excited about this, because today's guest is actually Mitch Watson, who is a writer, producer, and showrunner. He was one of the original Wonderland Wednesday guests. For anybody that has dug deep into the archives, you will see that Mitch was the guest in the second incarnation of Inside Alicyn's Wonderland when we were a web series. And Mitch and I met at a bar probably 8 years ago and did the interview there. And it was a lot of fun. I'm super impressed by his work. And we're going to talk all about some of his amazing shows that he's done, including All Hail King Julian, Beware the Batman, come with your Batman questions, and one of my personal favorite animated series of all time, Scooby Doo Mystery Inc. So there'll be plenty of time to ask questions. I want you guys to help me welcome to the live stream, Mitch Watson, aka Ass Jackal. Very, very professional name. Here we go.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm trying to figure this out. I've never done this before.
I know, it has to be like portrait mode, and it zooms in super close. Man, your mustache looks amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I was hoping you would say something about that.
The mustache, the glasses, the
it's my pandemic mustache, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. Are you able to switch your camera to the other?
Does it have to be that way?
It has to be that way.
Okay, hold on.
You know what? I should include that in my notes. Yeah. Hi.
Well, I'm trying to. There we go. Oh, I guess I got to back up. All right.
Yeah, it's super close.
Cool.
It's good to see your face.
Nice to see your face too on this lovely day of awfulness.
I know. I'm so glad that you didn't cancel and need to take a moment, because honestly, I think I would welcome the distraction right now.
Yeah. It's I've had it playing in the background all day long while I was working, and it's just what was funny was because on the new show that I'm doing, we were in the middle of the writer's room when it happened.
Yeah.
And then they were like, turn the TV. So we turned on the TV, and it was right when they were scaling the side of the building, and they were showing the dude sitting in Congress and everything. It was just like, we just couldn't believe it. That was it. Our meeting was done pretty much at that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I've been on like a New Year, focused kick and releasing my digital distractions. And I was in a session, and they mentioned something about it, but I had just come back from getting my kid on a Zoom, and I was like, what are they? I'm gonna have to look on CNN. And I went, and I was like, what? What? Yeah,
I don't, this is, we're not here to talk about politics or anything, but what were they, at a certain point, it was inevitable that this was it was inevitable. He was, and I think he did it on purpose. I think he was stoking it and stoking it and stoking it, and they finally took him up on it. He was out there. I saw a video from a rally that he had done earlier in the day, where he was saying, let's go, we're going to march, we're not going to stand down, and da-da-da-da. You're like, okay, all right. What is the most shocking to me, it's all pretty shocking, but how easily they were able to get in. That's the part that I'm like, what? This is the freaking Congress and the White House, and it's that easy for them to bust in? Are you kidding me? And then and then of course, if you've seen any of the stuff that people have posted online of when they had the Black Lives Matter protests, I mean, they covered that place in security, and nothing happened. So it'll be interesting to find out why it was or what was going on that it was so little security when they knew this was going to. Yeah, I mean, they knew these people were going to be protesting. So,
and who is making all those calls?
Yeah.
I think that was that was the most surprising piece for me, as well as how surprised I was that it happened.
Yeah, his whole presidency has been sort of, this grand spectacle, and this is the climax, unfortunately. So,
Well, speaking of grand spectacles,
yes.
I think that's an interesting segue. First of all, thank you for being on the show. I mean, we had you back here, I think it was like 8 years ago or maybe more.
Was that how long it goes? I do remember the bar. I do remember the bar. I'm trying to remember which bar was it? I don't remember exactly which bar.
I think we're all asking ourselves that question.
Anyways, too many bars in my past to fully remember.
It's not there
everything.
anymore. And yeah, I mean, at that time, I think we were talking Scooby Doo Mystery Inc. And I don't know if you were working on All Hail King Julian. My son also really loves that show.
8 years ago, no. That would have been probably right when I was finishing up Batman.
Beware the Batman.
Yes, a show that was, I had 2 shows in a row, basically, that Cartoon Network absolutely hated. One of them was Mystery Incorporated, and then one of them was Beware the Batman. They hated those shows, man.
Let's just launch into Mystery Inc. because honestly, this is one of my favorite animated shows of all time.
Thank you.
I watched it with my 4-year-old son, which...
Your son's brave. My daughters won't watch it. It scares the crap out of them, so they won't watch it.
But I think it's just like, oh, mom's letting me watch this scary show. So please don't take parenting advice from me. But that was like our pandemic binge. We just watched, we watched both seasons. And even tonight, I was like, okay, Bodhi, I sat down and I was like, what are your questions for Mitch Watson regarding Scooby Doo Mystery Inc.? And he wanted to sit down and watch the final episode. And I thought that,
cool.
That was very apropos.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that show is that show's the gift that keeps on giving. I think I might have said this probably last time we met, but it was, like I said, Warner Brothers was always super supportive of it, Sam Register and those guys. But Cartoon Network did not like it. It was just too weird, too dark, and they didn't know what to do with it, which is why they kept yanking it off the schedule. And Tony Cervoni and I, who did it together, we said at the time, well, okay, so nobody's watching it now because nobody can find it because they keep moving around the schedule. But someday. We hoped that people would discover it. And then just by luck, when Netflix came online not too long after that, and it was sold to Netflix, and they started airing them in continuity, because that was one of the big problems always with Cartoon Network, besides the fact that they were always yanking it off the schedule, is they would air them out of order.
Oh, no!
All the time. Which is why that we ended up putting the chapter headings on it. So that if you were watching it and you had just watched chapter 7 and suddenly chapter 10 showed up, you knew that you were missing. There was something missing because all the episodes were linked. So
that's
anyway.
terrible.
So when Netflix came along, it was a massive, huge. That was when suddenly people started discovering it, and now we're it's 10, 12 years later, I think, since we made it, and
10 years.
Yeah. So we're doing this today, and 2 months ago, I spoke to a college class at Arizona State, because they're doing a class on, popular culture, whatever. And it was one of the things they were studying in the class. And then I did another. I mean, it's been nuts. It's how long, I've worked on a bunch of things, but that's the one that people always really gravitate towards, which is nice.
Well, I think what is so interesting, I'm curious to hear about this, is what challenges you must have faced. You have this iconic comedy with these kind of broad characters that live in this certain era, and you completely took it out of the box, and it has this like teen drama element, but
Yeah.
this darkness. And excuse me, your art director on that show was,
Dan Kroll.
oh my God,
Yeah. Dan's
mind
amazing.
blowing.
Yeah.
And if you
Amazing
live
guy.
in the Valley of Burbank, like his house designs where Velma lives is exactly one of those little bungalows on
It
Hollywood
is.
Way.
It is one of those bungalows on Hollywood Way. That's what that was what we used as a basis for it. Yeah, for
It's
sure.
so there's so many like SoCal Easter eggs in there. And is Crystal Cove, is that Santa Barbara or
It's supposed to be like La Jolla, quite honestly.
oh,
I mean,
South, really?
yeah, the reason it ended up being like La Jolla or La Jolla-esque, but sort of like a beach community was when we first started developing it, we went through the archival material from the original show back in like '68.
Uh-huh.
And we found out that they had based it on this sort of beach town, and it was loosely based on La Jolla. So we thought, all right, well, we're going to bring that back, because
Yeah.
one of the first things that we set out to do the first question we asked was like, how old are these kids? And nobody could give us a definitive answer. Like some people thought, oh, they're in high school, and then other people thought, no, they're in college, and then other people thought, no, they're out of college. They've been out of college. And we're like, okay, well, what are they really? So then we went back to the archival material,
Uh-huh.
and they were in high school. They were always meant to be in high school, and they were meant to live in this beach town. So we said, okay, let's instead of having them driving all over the place, let's set it in a town, because we knew if we could set it in a town,
Yeah.
we could open up the story in terms of the characters. Like we could actually see their home life and see their relationships, and that was more important to us. If you watch the show, I mean, you'll notice that the mysteries are not as important to us as the characters themselves and the things that happen to them. In fact, there's a lot of episodes in the first season where we purposely made the mysteries as stupid as possible. Especially the stupidest one is I think it's the truck that terrifies people, and then it turns out that it's being done by this guy who owns a ladder company, because he wants to steal all the doorknobs in town because he believes one of them is going to be a jewel. And he figures that if he steals all the doorknobs, people will have to use ladders to get in through their upper window, and then it'll save his business. It's just it was totally ridiculous. We had another one that it was a female villain who was flying like a bat, and then we said it was all because of her core strength, and that because she was a Pilates instructor. It was, we were just having fun with it.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's to answer long-winded answer to that's where Crystal Cove came from.
And I think it's really interesting. Was it Tony Cervoni that came out and said that Velma Dinkley was actually dealing with her homosexuality in that show?
That's
so
correct.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, that was another
Hot
thing.
Dog Water kind of had a thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was the thing in the again, we looked at a lot of stuff, and we looked at a lot of online blogs, and we went through the sort of history of the fandom and everything, and it was all part of us wanting to sort of kind of reinvent it. And one of the main things that we saw online was this concept, and it had been around for decades, that is Velma Dinkley gay? And it had never been explored before, because quite honestly, they wouldn't let us explore it. They wouldn't let people explore it at that time. And by the way, I say that time, that was just 10 years ago. But at the time when we said that we wanted to explore that, it was pretty much like, nah, you don't want to do that. No, don't do that. But Tony and I were kind of determined. Yeah. So we figured out a way to do it in such a way that we could get away with it. To me, it's really obvious that she's gay, but it isn't, I guess, if you aren't looking for it. I mean, by the end, when she gets together with Hot Dog Water and there's that last scene of them on the bed together, it's like, come on, I mean, you know what we're doing. But
I didn't notice it in the beginning. She's got a crush on Shaggy, and then it evolved. Like you see her teen frustration.
The way she acts towards Yeah, we got a lot of heat in the beginning for the way that we were portraying Velma, because they thought that she was really bitchy and why is she acting this way towards Shaggy and blah, 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 blah. And the reason that she was doing that was because we wanted to show her arc over 52 episodes of really somebody who's kind of trying to figure out their sexuality. And at that time in the story, she's like 16 or 15, and she just doesn't know who she is. And she's been told, oh, I should like boys, and Shaggy's there, and she likes Shaggy as a friend and figures, well, this is a relationship. This is what we have together. And it isn't until they break up and then she sort of goes through a few other things that she starts to realize, well, maybe I'm gay. Maybe that might be, that might be something that's going to make me happy. Maybe that's the way I was always meant to be, which is where she ends up at the end of the show. But until we got to that place, we got a lot of angry people going, why are you making Velma
no
bitchy and blah, blah, blah. And then even from, God, why I'm blanking all of a sudden, on the actress who played Velma. Mindy Cohen.
Forever my favorite Velma.
Yeah, Mindy's a sweetheart and a wonderful person.
Why is she not Velma anymore?
Don't know. Outside my pay grade. I'm not there anymore. But even Mindy didn't quite understand. She didn't quite understand what we were doing, and we couldn't tell her too, because it was pretty secret. And so she really questioned us in the beginning of why we were going this route with Velma's personality. And we had to just just trust us. Just trust us that we're not going to steer you into a bad place. We know we're going in a particular direction. We know what we're doing. So just trust us. And she did. And she went with it. And she was awesome. I mean, they were all of them, Matt Lillard and Gray Delisle and Frank Welker. I mean, they were just fantastic to work with. Yeah. All of them.
Yeah, I mean, the show is surprising, and there is like a dark comedy, but it's much more of a drama than the other Scoobies.
Oh yeah. Well, the funny thing was, we were told in the beginning, I mean, one of the first things that Sam said to us was they wanted a scary version of Scooby Doo. And he knew that I'm a big horror movie fan. So I think that's partially why I got hired. And so we said, great. And so we made this as scary as we could make it. And in fact, we made one episode so scary that Cartoon Network kicked it back and made us I think we had to re-edit it slightly. And then we had to change the music in one scene, because there was one scene where it's in the Spookified Children episode where the kids are attacking the gang. And we had this really creepy, like Dario Argento kind of music playing. And Cartoon Network's like, we can't air this. We can't. It's going to freak people out. So we had to take it back. And I remember Bruce Timm, who I'd see all the time out there, because I smoked at that time and Bruce smoked. So we would meet for cigarettes periodically. And Bruce was very impressed that we were able to make a scary version of Scooby Doo. He's like, I don't know how you guys do that. How do you, he was and coming from Bruce Timm, that's a high compliment. Yeah. But yeah, he was kind of amazed that we were able to make an episode of Scooby Doo that was actually legitimately scary. So
yeah, well, I mean, Bodie and I call it Scooby Scary, and he's only allowed to watch it with mom or dad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's one episode where a woman like rips her face off, and then when we get into the second season, when we really start getting into the backstory of the history of Crystal Cove and the mystery of the planispheric disk, I mean, people get killed. If you're paying attention closely, Hot Dog Water is gunned down by Nazi robots at one point, and towards the very, very end.
And Cassidy Williams, right?
She dies.
She
also dies trying to save the kids.
I kept thinking she was coming back.
No.
But
see, again, we knew how this whole series was going to end way, way, way ahead of time. So yeah, that was how we were able to sort of convince the network to let us do that stuff, because we were like, well, here's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
So what you're viewing right now isn't really what's gonna happen. So it took a lot of finagling. I mean, we also got very lucky because in the first season especially, we were doing it. It was a co-production with British Cartoon Network. Originally, it wasn't even supposed to air in the United States. It was only supposed to air overseas.
Wow.
And then somehow Cartoon Network got wind of it and here in the States and decided that they wanted to do it too, show it too. So, but what happened was the guy we were working with in England, the executive, either quit or got fired. We never quite figured out what happened, but he disappeared. So we had nobody supervising the show. There was, for the first about 12, 13 episodes, we had no, executive influence. And if you've ever worked on one of these shows, which I know you have, you know that there's a lot of the executives have a large say in what makes it to air. So without that, we were able to do a lot of the things that we wanted to do. And the other thing that worked out in our favor was the broadcast standards and practice guy in England, who usually they're the bane of our existence, and they make us cut out anything that could possibly be offensive. This guy realized really early on that we were hiding things in the scripts all over the place, little Easter eggs in every episode. And he started getting a real kick out of finding them. So because he would send us a printout basically, and like all the things that he said might be problems. And then at the very end, he would go, and these are all the Easter eggs I found. And then he would list them. And we were like, okay, you got almost all of them, but you missed one. And he would go all upset, and then he'd try to go back and find it. So we became friends with him. And that helped the show considerably, because I think we got stuff through because of that too. So.
But was it different S&P for Britain and America?
Yeah. When it became more of an American production here, then we had different S&P. And then they started cracking down a little bit of something. That's why if you watch the first season up through like episode 13 or 14, like Scooby Snacks are almost not in it at all, because I didn't want to do them, because I was like, yeah, okay, we've seen them in every single iteration, and that's just sort of not what we're doing, and I didn't really want to do it. And then we got a new executive in who was just like, where are the Scooby Snacks? And we're like, well, we purposely didn't put them in because we didn't want to, and like, we got to put them in. And then they kept fighting to put it in. So
which character do you think you're most like
me?
from the Scooby Doo series? Yeah.
Oh God. Shit, I don't know. I mean, we're in it. Tony and I are actually in the show.
Who do you play?
We play these two idiots who go to school with the gang. I think one of them's named Trent. What?
The preppy guys?
The preppy guys, the two jocks. Who show up periodically, and then my wife is actually in one episode as well, as I think that character's girlfriend.
You know what's so funny? I think you invited me to a taping of an episode back in the day. So actually, maybe our last recording was more like 10 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, I think yes, it was a while ago.
Were there a lot?
We've been through a lot since then, Alicyn.
Yeah, we've barely chatted since then, but it's good to see your face. Now, you used to be an actor too, right? You kind of came into writing.
Once upon a time, yeah. I was a magician actually for a long time.
Really?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Where'd you grow up?
Here, Los Angeles.
Okay. Did you study at the Magic Castle?
I did.
Wow.
I was I think a junior member of the Magic Castle. My teacher was from the Magic Castle, and so I performed there a couple of times. I remember. Mm-hmm. This is when I was a kid. But yes, after that, yeah, I was an actor for many years. You can find a few things out there if you want. But pretty much after college, I got more into it. I joined a company out here called the Actors Gang, which is run by Tim Robbins. And I started writing plays for them. And that was really once I started writing plays for the Actors Gang, that was pretty much where I was like, man, I like this better. Mm-hmm. I just didn't like it's acting's a tough gig, and I hated auditioning. I hated it with a passion. I hated it. I hated learning lines. I hated the stuff that I was being told to read, because I was always, no matter what I wanted, I was always being put up for the dork role, like the geeky computer nerd role. So I hated that. So I finally went pretty much right around when I graduated from college. I was like, nah, writing's, I want to be a writer. I want to write more.
Got it.
So, yeah.
And so then what was your progression from college to like
Animation.
Tack and the Power of
Well,
Juju? Was that your first animated series, Tack and the Power of Juju?
that was the first one I ran.
Okay.
But I've been doing it for I've been writing for years before that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically, as fast as I could do it. I was waiting tables in Beverly Hills. I had waited tables through college and waited tables for a long time after college. And I was writing plays for the Actors Gang. I was broke. I had no money, living with a bunch of dudes in Hollywood. And what happened was two things. One, a friend of mine who worked for Spumco at the time, which was John Cristofalussi's company, said, hey, there's an opening for a PA position on a TV show called Duckman, which was one of the very early adult animated shows on the USA Network, starring Jason Alexander. So,
right. Whoa, gosh, was that the 90s?
that's the 90s. This has got to be like 97, 98,
Wow.
maybe, somewhere in
Yep.
there. So
Wow.
then, so I started as a PA. I started as a PA in animation. And and then I did that, and then I eventually worked my way up to producer on
Mm-hmm.
Duckman.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, what happened was I had another play of mine being produced, and some guys from Warner Brothers came, who I had known from the improv world, because I also did improv. And they said, hey, they liked it. They liked my play. And they said, would you ever consider writing for animation? I said, you fucking kidding me? I've been trying to get my foot in the door for years and just getting it slammed shut. And so they gave me a shot writing on a show called Freakazoid. And so Freakazoid became the first show I worked on. And then Pinky and the Brain I worked on after that, through the same guys. And at the same time I was doing that, I was still working in production. And then I eventually went to DreamWorks and worked in production there. And while I was doing production there as a line producer,
Mm-hmm.
I became friends with the guys who were working down the hall on a show called Toonsylvania. And so I convinced them to let me start writing on that. So I was writing on that. I would do that on my lunch break, basically, and then was line producing on this other thing. Then I left DreamWorks and went to Carsey Warner, where Carsey Warner at that time was starting their own animation division, and they were doing a show called God, the Devil, and Bob, which for NBC. Which was a primetime animated sitcom. Yeah, that was a primetime.
Wow.
So it was a disaster for a lot of reasons.
How did it feel? Did it feel awesome though?
Yeah, it did it. It did it because it was, it's a tricky thing when you go to work for a company. And I never saw Carsey or Warner. I never dealt with them. But, you go to a company that predominantly does live action and they're not used to doing animation, but they think that they know how to do it. So they're not about to listen to some, idiots who've done animation before. And consequently, the show went way over budget and over schedule, and it ended up airing, I think, 3 months late or something like that. And then the ratings were shit. So that blew up. But that was really the last show that I was a producer on, a line producer on. I just went, I can't do this anymore. I got to quit. So I just quit and just started freelance writing. And I freelanced writing and eking out a living for about 4 or 5 years. And then what happened was I got hired by Warner Brothers again by a guy named Peter Hastings. And Peter had been one of the original writers on Animaniacs. He also co-created Pinky and the Brain. And Peter became a friend of mine. And he left and went to Nickelodeon. And when he went to Nickelodeon, he brought me along with him to work on a show called Cat Scratch. And so that's how I got on Cat Scratch, and I became the story editor on Cat Scratch. And then after Cat Scratch got canceled was how I ended up on Tack. And I ended up on Tack again as a story editor under my buddy Jed Spingarn. And then Jed got removed off the show and put on Barnyard. And then they brought in another executive producer on Tack, and then he got fired about 2 months later. He was, I think, the 6th showrunner they'd had on that show. And the show now was already in production and going, and they were like, well, we got to keep going, so why don't we just make Mitch the fucking showrunner? So I didn't know what I knew the nuts and bolts on how to make a show, but I really didn't know show running at all. And I just sort of
Yes.
got shoved in, and it was a great and horrible experience all at the same time, because the show, it was also the first CGI show that Nickelodeon had ever done in-house. So we were all learning the process at the same time and learning the limitations. And back then, CG was not what it is now. It was really rudimentary back then. And it was just a really very, very tough experience. A lot of us refer to it as our Vietnam of animation, because it was just a hellscape. And basically what happened there was I finished the writing, and I think the week after I finished writing, they let me go. And then I was out of work again. And then through great happenstance, my old friend Ramsey Naito, who now runs Nickelodeon, was a producer at that point at Cartoon Network, and they were about to begin work on a live action version of Ben 10. And they were in trouble because the show had a start date of when they needed to start principal photography, and they had no script. And so I came in, I met with her, and that's how I ended up meeting Sam Register. And I banged out a script really fast, like 2 weeks, something like that. And Alex Winter was the director, and I continued to sort of rewrite it as the project went along, and then that ended up being very successful for them. And then we wrote the second one, and then Rob Sorcher came in and took over Cartoon Network, and I was promptly let go. But that was okay, because by that point, Sam Register was running Warner Brothers, and so I went over there. And then the rest, and I've worked pretty steadily since then. So I've been fortunate.
Can you talk about what you're working on now?
I am working on a show called Big Nate, which is based on the book series of the same name. Very popular kids book series for like tweens, I guess. Been around since like 1992. So that's what I'm working. It's going to be a CGI show. Got a great team. I mean, really, really good people. Some of who I've worked with before, some of it. The craziest thing about Big Nate has been producing it during a pandemic, because we started production literally the week that we were in lockdown. We were all told to go home on a Thursday or a Friday. And on Monday, we were told we wouldn't be coming back, but production would continue. So we were like, all right. So we've staffed up. We had part of the staff at that point, but we hadn't even finished casting yet. We were just going into callbacks for casting.
Wow.
And then and then so we had to do everything that way, and we've been producing it ever since over Zoom, and it's insane. I mean, it's insane, and somehow it's working. I don't know how, and the show's actually coming out really great. But yeah, I'm doing records on Zoom. I'm running the records with 12 actors sometimes on a screen.
So you do big group records?
Yeah, we're doing, group records. They were saying that, a lot of people weren't doing group records in this, during the pandemic.
That's what I've been hearing. Yeah.
Yeah, but we have, ours it's not an ensemble. It is sort of an ensemble show, but I've gotten into the habit of doing group records because I like to have the actors be able to play off each other. So that's what we did. So we said, and they were like, well, no one else is doing group records. I was like, yeah, I kind of feel like we have to do them though, because this is a show very much about the characters and their interaction. And if I've got everybody sort of working in a space and they don't know what the other actors are saying, it's not going to work. So we were able to work it out, and it's tricky, but it works. It works. I mean, and it's really, to me, it's the only way you can do it. We got a great group. I'm not allowed to talk about who's in the show. So I was told I can talk about the show, but I'm not allowed to mention the cast. There's some people you'll know, some people you won't.
Yeah.
A lot of really good people though. A lot of really talented, a lot of young actors too. A lot of younger actors, some more seasoned actors.
But the leads are not kids, right?
The leads are not kids. They're young, but they're not kids. Because a whole bunch of different reasons why we didn't go with kids. I've found I work with kids when I did Kung Fu Panda. I love, actually, the kids I worked with on that were amazing. And I was surprised at how good they were, but there's a certain limitation you have when you're working with kids in terms of the way you deal with them and the way you talk and the way you swear or whatever you're going to do. So, you know, and it's just trickier. So and that's why I prefer to work with slightly and some people that are over 18, because they're going to get what we're doing a little bit better. And but the main reason I like to work with adults is because adults are good at improvising. And part of what I like to do, at least when I'm directing, is give the actors the freedom to improvise if they want to. Because we hire a lot of people from the UCB and from the groundlings, and, you know, to not let those guys improvise is a crime. So my feeling is always like, you know, here's the script, say the dialogue, but if you think you have a better line or you feel like ad-libbing something, go for it, you know?
Yeah.
Worst thing that's going to happen is we're not going to use it. But that's the glory of animation, is that we can cherry pick what we want. And so, you know, and I found that once actors find out that they have that freedom, you know, to explore, it makes all the difference in the world. My favorite one being Henry Winkler years ago, when I worked with him on All Hail King Julian. I don't know if you've ever worked with him before, but
I've had lunch with him.
Okay, he's an incredibly nice man.
Yeah.
And we brought him in on
nice.
Julian. Yeah, we brought him in on Julian, and he was fine. But everybody was kind of like, this is weird. We know Henry. We feel like he can do better, but for some reason he's not clicking. And so somebody, I don't know if it was me or somebody else, suggested, well, why don't we bring him in with the cast as opposed to recording him by himself? You know, the guy, he's a theater actor. He might react better there. So we got a couple of the cast members back in, and we had him come back and redo his dialogue. And literally, it was night and day, because now that he was playing off of other actors, and there's also that actor thing of where I'm not going to let this guy upstage me, so that everybody ups their game. And and Winkler just became a completely different person. I mean, he was on fire, and he was throwing out ad libs, and he was blah, 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 blah. And because of that, we actually made his part much bigger on the show. But yeah, we learned that was the key to Henry. It was like, don't record. Because some actors, like Andy Richter, exact opposite. Andy Richter loved to record by himself, and he was much better when he recorded by himself. Great. But Winkler was clearly better in a group setting, you know? Yeah. So you just sort of have to feel the actors out and sort of figure out what works best with them and everything.
That's so fun. So are you guys on Blue Jeans or Zoom or?
You know, we started on Blue Jeans. And
Blue Jeans
sucked. It sucked.
Oh
it was
my
terrible.
God, I had like a nightmare situation recording something on Nick on Blue Jeans, and like, you know, sound checked on Zoom. Perfect. I have this super nice home studio, and it was like, the levels aren't coming in. Nothing more put you on end than. We kept getting back recordings that were really bad. So we switched over to Zoom because the lag also wasn't as bad on Zoom. Zoom still has its issues, but now what do we use? Zoom and Source Connect, I think, so we know that the feed is correct. And, you know, it's funny too, because when we started doing this, like, nobody had a home setup. Very few people had home setups. Wow. Yeah, and so we had to send microphones out to everyone so everybody was on the same mic. But now if you go on Amazon and you go like home voiceover setup or whatever, there's a whole fucking package you can buy, you know? So now everybody now has an incredibly cool voiceover package in their closets, because that's where most people record, in their closets. And that's also been very entertaining to see what people wear as they're recording in their closets. So yeah, I know. It's a very, very strange way of making a show, but you know, the long and the short of it is you can do it, you know? I mean, and it really does open it up. You don't have to live in Los Angeles anymore, at least at the moment. You can live because we have people all over the country calling in. And it's working. We're even doing songs. We're editing over video. Yeah? There's some singing in it?
Oh yeah, well, there's a ton of singing in the show. Ton.
Fun.
Yeah, there's lots of songs in the show. We just started recording the actors doing that. It's working somehow. Crazy, I don't know how. Editing is somehow working. We're going to start doing ADR soon. I don't know how that's going to go, but apparently you can do that. Oh, and this you'll love too. This is only for like nerd geeky stuff, but
dive in there. Shows, that's our audience base.
Yeah. Okay. So, when you do these shows at the very, very end is when you sort of do the color correct and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, the issue with color correct is always going to be, is your monitor calibrated? So apparently now what they're doing is they're sending everybody iPads. So everybody will have the same iPad settings so that we can all look at it and make our notes and da-da-da. It's just, it's nuts. Wow. It's nuts. It's all nuts, but it's working. It's working.
I miss being in the same room as people, though, and the energy. And I just cannot wait until we can get back in the studio and back in real life with each other. For anybody that's just tuning in, this is Alicyn's Wonderland, a weekly animation and video game web series, IGTV show that we do, and this is Mitch Watson, showrunner, producer, writer. Right now we're talking about his new show for Nickelodeon called Big Nate, based on the book series. He also did Scooby Doo Mystery Inc., Beware, Batman, All Hail King Julian, and a bunch of other shows. So there is a little question mark at the very bottom. If you have questions for Mitch, go ahead and type them in there and we will try to get to them. You have a hard out at 4.
Around 7 or so.
Okay. We'll definitely be done by 7.
I have to put my kids to bed. I have to put my 2 lovely daughters to bed.
Yes, yeah. Of course. I also, not tonight. Tonight I get off, but I have that same recurring appointment on my calendar.
It's strange too, because when you and I met each other, I think it was neither one of us had kids actually. No. Yeah, and it was a very different time.
Yes.
The club, I remember the club. I won't go into what club it was, but I'm sure you remember that club.
Yeah.
It was fun though.
Type your guesses into the questions below, into the question box below.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. That was, it was such a different time, but we could still have fun now, even if we're in bed by 9.
Here's what I will say about this whole craziness is the fact that I've been able to reconnect with a lot of people that I haven't talked to in a long time, because it's much easier to do it this way because I don't have to go anywhere. And I will say the writer's room is much more civil, because you can't really talk over each other with Zoom because it just cuts you out. So everybody's kind of got to be you really have to listen. You really have to sort of be respectful of when somebody's talking and everything. And it's funny because another friend of mine who's doing a different show was saying that it's been a really good way to weed out writers for him, because he says when you get a writer in the room who won't stop talking, and just is constantly throwing out ideas and not letting anybody else get in edgewise, that person becomes apparent really, really quickly, because no one can speak because of Zoom. So he's been able to weed them out relatively easily. Yeah, I know it's such an interesting experience, but here we are making tunes on the interwebs. Okay, so Jeff Burns has a question. Do you guys send recording rigs out to the cast to facilitate the recording? Yes.
We did talk a little bit about that.
We do. Yeah, we send everybody who works on the show gets a rig. And I don't know how it works with the guest stars, but I think they do too, because we had to basically what we found out is if people were using all different types of mics, we were getting all different types of quality, and even when they were cleaning it up, it wasn't working. So we just decided, no, we got to send mics out to everybody. So that was how we did it. We still do it.
I'm trying to think, who is that? Who at Nick is casting that? We have
Liz Paulson.
She's the exec, right? The casting exec.
She's our head casting executive. who's Amanda and Roxanne. I can't. I don't have their last names on me right now.
I could tell.
But there are two. But yeah, Liz is great. Liz is great because she's new. I mean, that's the interesting thing too about Nickelodeon. I don't know if a lot of people know that is that Nickelodeon over the last 10 years has had a lot of turnover in terms of executives, and so when I started, which is just over a year ago, is when I started. Just over a year ago, when I started back, it was like almost everybody there had only been there about a year. It was like working for a startup that had been around for 20 years. Because everybody was like gung ho and we're going to do new stuff and it's a whole new vibe and a whole new energy and da 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 da. And then of course,
new stuff and a lot of the old stuff too. Bring it back.
Yeah, well, there's still a lot of people who are there, but there's a really nice vibe at Nick at the moment, simply because I think when Ramsey came in, her attitude, because she's an old time Nick person too. Her attitude was, I want to get back to what made this place special,
Yeah.
And I think she's been really smart with a lot of the hires and a lot of the executives that she's hired, and it's a good group of people. The guy that I work with, the executive I work with, is a guy named Nathan Schramm, and he's just amazing. He's great. He's one of the best executives I've ever worked with. So, a young guy too, not that old. So.
Monty says, "Yikes, Scoob! Like, where's the Scooby snacks?"
He took them out. Sorry.
We ate them all before the show, so if things get a little weird.
Yes, the psychedelic Scooby snacks.
The psychedelic Scooby snacks. Jeff has another question. Do you ever do 2 takes when you have actors do it as written and then a crazy pass for take 2? We did talk a little bit.
We do. Yep, that's exactly how we do it. Yeah, usually, traditionally we'll do between 2 to 4 takes of anything, and we get at least one clean one as written, and the actors know this. They have free latitude to do whatever they want. They're actually very cool about it. They always go, "Hey, Mitch, would you mind if we, if I threw in some new dialogue here?" I'm like, "No, fucking go for it." So, I always say the same thing. I said, you are free to say whatever you want, throw out any line you want to, and I am free not to use it if I don't want to. But if it's better than what I wrote or somebody else wrote, I'm going to use it because I'll get the credit for it anyways. So, I don't know. That's always to me like, why wouldn't you want to use material coming from, really, really good improvisers? So, but I also feel too is the reason I like to do that is we've had some people improvise things sometimes, like Kevin Michael Richardson, who's a big voice actor who I'm sure you've worked with. And I've worked with Kevin many, many times, and Kevin sometimes will throw out things that are so funny that we end up incorporating them into the show. We did that on All Hail King Julian. The character of Butterfish was created solely by Kevin improvising this character in the background of another scene, and we thought it was so funny that we kept bringing it back, and then finally we were like, we should just make this a character because we just keep bringing him back. And by the end of the series, he was a regular character, and he had a family, and he had all of this shit. So I love that stuff. That's my favorite thing, is when stuff sort of grows organically out of a session.
And it makes it more fun. I mean, that's how you become like a family, is when you have your history and your inside jokes,
Yeah, the nice thing is, working in animation is, people who work in animation are generally pretty good people. They're not, if you've worked in live action as well, it's hit or miss. You'll sometimes work with great people and sometimes you're going to work with psychopaths. Predominantly, though, in animation, you're not working with psychopaths. You're working with good people. And the actors, in general, are always super gracious and happy to be there. And I think part of that has to do with the fact they don't have to dress up. They don't even have to put on. I mean, I've recorded people in their pajamas before, and also, too, you don't have to memorize any lines. And so it's a very sort of laid back, enjoyable experience. It reminds me a lot of when I used to do theater, and and I love, and whenever I can try to bring that theater vibe into the whole thing, I will, which is why I like doing, ensemble records and everything, because I really like actors. I like working with actors, and it's just, there's so when the actors are having a good time, even over Zoom, you can feel it.
Yeah.
So, so it's important to make everybody comfortable, and so that they know, hey, this is a safe space. You can do what you want. No one's going to judge you. Throw out whatever you need. If it sucks, I don't care. I just want you guys to have fun and enjoy yourself, because I think that bleeds into the show itself, and you can feel it on a subconscious or visceral level.
Yeah,
and there you
definitely.
go. Mm-hmm.
The fun beams through.
Mm-hmm. What else? What else?
I know we're going to wrap it up soon, but I have two more questions. One is, as a parent, how do you balance work and your family life?
That's hard.
Yeah.
It's not as hard right now, to be honest with you, because I'm literally beneath my kitchen as I speak to you in our converted storage space that I'm now using as an office.
Oh, yeah.
But how do you balance it with kids? My daughters, they've been around. They come around all the time, quite honestly. Nickelodeon's great if you have kids, because they let the kids in. So like DreamWorks isn't quite. DreamWorks is a little bit more hardcore about like who comes and goes. Yeah. Nickelodeon's got much more of an open door policy. So they, I mean, before the pandemic, they were at Nick all the time. I mean, they were there a bunch of times running down the halls, because you got to understand, my daughters are 9 and 6. And so, they're in Nickelodeon, and there's candy everywhere. Toys and shit. And they're just, it's a fantasy world for them. I mean, this is like, it's Willy Wonka, and they love it. So the hard thing, quite honestly, is getting them not to come by, because they want to come by all the time. And I like having them come by, actually, but it's tricky. It's another reason why I hate the fact that we're in this pandemic, because they're not getting to do that. I know. But there's also somebody, there's a person on Big Nate. I'm not allowed to say who that is, but this person is extremely popular with kids of a certain age. Yeah, yeah. And you'll know who I'm talking about when they finally release who it is. But when they found out this person was working on the show every single day, it's like, when can we meet? Are we is this the day? And I'm like, it'll happen. I promise you, and I think it's actually going to happen next week. But, on Zoom. What's really great, and then I'm not really answering your question, but what's also great about having kids when you work in animation is that I'm their hero. I mean, when they age out of this and they start watching, other shit, like, they get into dramas and stuff like that. Twilight, I don't even know. Twilight or whatever, or whatever even now. I mean, some of them, my older daughter's into The Descendants. She just loves The Descendants and High School Musical and that kind of stuff. So she's moving a little bit away of it, but she still likes animation. My younger daughter, I'm still a hero to. Yeah. But yet they don't watch my stuff, because most of my stuff is a little too adult for them still. Yeah. But they're getting there. But anyways, the thing about animation is I'm here in the morning for them to drive them. I used to drive them to school when they went to school. And then I'm here at night to sort of tuck them in. So, yeah. Animation affords you that luxury, because you're not on location and you're not working 14-hour days usually. Yeah. So you can sort of balance it, Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question, but I think the bottom line is, like, really, we're all just doing the best we can. I think, there is no miracle for being the perfect parent, working parent, or otherwise. I think you got to make an effort too. I mean, look, you could, if I wanted to, I could never see my children. Oh yeah. I could easily disappear for, because with the amount of work I have, just never come home. But I don't want to do that. So, you know, I come home and I put them to bed, and then I work, and then I go back to work again. So,
oh, wow. That's a lot.
yeah, but I found having kids, you know, look, I've said this to other people too. I said, look, if you don't want to have kids, don't have kids, because it's way too much work, and it's you know, it's a huge, huge deal. But if you do decide to have kids, I will say that it is, you know, it does change your life. Your perspective on things completely shifts. It's like, oh, it's not about me anymore. It's about these two little creatures who I need to take care of. And it puts a lot of your, I mean, I'm sure you felt this, and I think anybody who's a parent feels it. It puts your whole life into perspective, and you start looking at your parents through a different prism. And, you know, it's affected the way I write. And, you know, I don't think it, like, I think if you were to look at some of my stuff from 15 years ago as opposed to now, I was way more cynical and dark than I am now. I mean, I catch myself on Big Nate writing things, and I'm like, I can't believe I would never have written that 15 years ago. But you know, you realize I'm living with my audience now. I'm living with the kids who are actually going to watch this kind of stuff, because they're the age, and you suddenly have a newfound like, okay, I need, you know, I don't want them, you know, I don't want them hearing that. I want them, this is what I want them to take away from it. I don't want this dark, cynical thing take away, which is what I used to do a lot of. So not quite as much anymore. It's still there, but not as much.
Aw, yeah. Well, I know that you're probably dying to get back to them, so I don't want to keep you too long. I just was wondering real quick if you had any advice for people looking to break into animation, either as a producer or writer, or maybe as someone who's developing their own show.
Sure. You know, I did it the wrong way.
Okay, so don't do it right.
That. I did not. If I had known, look, here's the best. If you want to get into writing, either live action or animation, and this is, I'm not talking about features, I'm only talking about TV. Do your damnedest to become a writer's assistant, because that is the only, to me, tried and true way of really getting your foot in the door, where you're almost, unless you're just a major screw up, chances are, if you become a writer's assistant, you will end up writing. I mean, every single writer's assistant I've ever had is become a writer on the shows I'm on, including Big Nate. So, and you know, and I love working with new writers. I love working with them because they haven't learned any really bad habits yet, and so I can, you know, sort of help. Hopefully I can show them, you know, ways of doing things. But yeah, becoming a writer's assistant, I did not know that, so I did it the wrong way. I just kept writing stuff on spec and submitting it, and nothing would happen. And then I finally decided to go into production. And then once you get into production, you're around the people. You just sort of got to weasel your way in there. So, you know, any way of getting in the door is good. You know, barring that, if you can figure out a way to intern, you know, if you're still in college, get an intern job. A lot of interns I know have gone on to do great things. Several have worked for me. Let's see. You know, I will say, you know, watch the kind of stuff that you like. Learn the way it's constructed. Look at the way the shows are built. Look at the way in animation, you know, in animation, you've got two different types of shows. You either 11 minutes or 22s. I prefer 22s.
Even shorter now with Netflix. I mean, there's a lot of 6-minute shows.
Yeah, but like that was one of the big hurdles at Nickelodeon. They predominantly do 11s, and I said I want to do a 22. And so I talked them into it, but I talked them into it by writing it and giving it to them that this is how it would work. And they were like, okay, we see it. And so they let me. But,
nice.
You know, learn the difference between writing an 11-minute and a 22, because there's a big difference between the two and what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
But, you know, I always say to people, you know, one of the things, the way I finally started feeling like I was getting better as a writer was when I really became a story editor and reading other people's scripts
Yeah.
and sort of critiquing them and seeing what worked and what didn't. And, you know, just by absorption, you learn the craft that way too. And I was terrible when I was first starting out at reading scripts. I hated it. I don't like reading scripts normally. I never liked doing it. And that was stupid of me, because I've since learned now, you know, from story editing probably for the last 10 years or 15 years, you know, and reading hundreds of scripts and giving notes, that taught me more than anything else.
Yeah.
Because it taught you, it really does teach you. Another thing that can really help, I think, for writers is write and shoot your own short film. And what I mean by that is, I did not realize how much I was overwriting things until I started making some shorts of my own and then started editing them. And like, I would see dialogue that I was absolutely convinced was 100% had to be there. You cannot cut this out. You know, I would argue to the ends of the earth, and then I'd see it in editorial and go, oh, fuck. Yeah, I'm gonna cut that shit out, because it was just clogging it up and da-da-da. You don't, until you sort of, at least that's for me, when you see it up there is when you go, oh, you really start to realize how little you need. And one of the key things in animation, not so much for live action, but more for animation, is you have to be able to think visually to be a good animation writer, in my opinion. You have to know how to think visually. What do I mean by that? Well, a sitcom writers, look at a sitcom. Sitcom's all about dialogue. It's all about dialogue. And it should be like a play. But when you get into, you know, like hour-longs, but when you specifically get into animation, it's not about the dialogue. It's about the characters, but it's also about the visual storytelling.
Yeah.
And the better you can get at visual storytelling, the better you can get at that, the better writer you will be. And if you decide to go into animation, the animators that you're working with will appreciate you more. Yeah. Because there's nothing where, and I can always tell somebody who hasn't done a lot of animation writing when I get a script where there's like a chunk of dialogue like that long, you know, like a monologue or something like that. It's like monologues don't work. Scenes around tables don't work in animation because nobody wants to watch two animated characters talking. They don't. It's, you know, figure out a way to do it visually, and you're already ahead of the game, really. That's a big one too, actually, especially if you want to go into animation. You know, learn brevity, look, just become a good editor. Figure out a way to edit yourself so that when you are giving somebody a script of yours to read, you know that I'm not saying anything that isn't already out there in the world. I think if you read Robert McKee's book, or Sid Field, I think it's McKee though, you know, he says, you know, cut and cut and cut and cut and cut it to the bare bones. Look at the movie. This is a weird reference, but go watch the movie Jaws sometime. Look at Jaws. Look at the way Jaws is cut. There is
Baby
no
Shark.
fat.
Can we just learn it by watching Baby Shark?
No, you won't know. Baby Shark's different. It's very different. But look at Jaws. And Jaws is, who is it? Thelma Schumacher? Was it Thelma? I'm not sure if it was Thelma Schumacher. That might be Scorsese's editor. But anyways, Jaws is cut. It's bare bones, man. There is no fat in that movie. Yeah. They just cut it all out. Yeah. And that's why it's such a great movie. Yeah. To this day, it's still a great movie. And that's kind of the same way you have to think about your writing. You know, the old adages are true. Get into a scene and get out. Don't start at the beginning of a scene. Start in the middle and leave before it's done. All that shit is totally accurate. But you really don't learn it until you just start doing it. You just got to do it. Do it and do it and do it and do it and do it. It's like anything else. It's like a muscle. You keep working it. And one day you stare at a blank page and realize, oh, this isn't a complete mystery anymore. I kind of know how I'm supposed to do this. And that's a great thing when that day happens. When you realize it's not about writer's block, or it's not about me staring at something and not having any ideas. I know I can do it. I just have the confidence in myself to do it because now I have the tools to be able to do it. So,
aww,
there you go.
Thank you. That's great. I mean, That's some great information right there.
That's my that's my
Um,
diatribe.
that's so
No, because
great.
I genuinely like.
You kind of froze up on me.
They get steered down the wrong path, and they become convinced that there's only one way of doing things, and there's not. There's many ways of doing things, but the greatest thing about being a writer is, you make your own rules, and as long as you follow your own rules, you're great. I've met too many writers who will go, well, we can't do that because this happened. I'm like, well, then fucking don't make that happen.
You mean like
It's
in
your
their
world.
career, or you mean in their story?
No. Like writers who they follow, like they follow like a particular format that they feel that they
Oh,
have to meet, and that something's got to happen by here and something's got to happen by here, and they end up writing themselves into these corners and just not understanding why they can't get anywhere with their scripts, and it's
uh-huh.
because they've created all these walls for themselves, and it's like, don't
Yeah.
you don't need to do that. So it's
Especially in animation where the formula can be broken with,
sure, yeah,
oh,
you can break it. Do you ever do two takes where you have actors do the? I think I read that one already.
I think you did, yeah. Is it still coming up? Yeah.
It just popped up.
Right.
Anyways, but yeah, it's I do enjoy working with new writers a lot because
Fun.
they're at least the ones that are willing to really put in the work, because it's work. It's writing is work, just like acting is work. Because like, I mean, I know you, since I've known you for a long time. I know how much you busted your ass to get where you are. You didn't walk in and they just went, "Oh, hi, Alicyn, here's a part." I know you really hustled and still hustle.
Oh,
So, and you have to. You have to, because
you got that's why you got to love it, otherwise you can't force yourself to hustle, force yourself to do the hard work and
yeah,
attack it every day, especially in an industry where nothing's guaranteed and
now,
you're constantly having to battle your own fears about, is this good enough, and just knowing that at every single level there will be times when you doubt yourself and you have to just keep digging in there and
yep.
cleaning it out and being like, yes, I'm just going to try and do a little bit better each day.
Yeah, and that's all part of the process, and it's
Yeah.
also you get a thicker skin. I can't even begin to tell you, if you worked with me 15 years ago as opposed to the way I am now, and gave me a note. I mean, I could be a pain in the ass when you gave me a note, and now I'm good. I know how to do it. Now I know how to roll with it and understand what they're trying to get at and sort of put it into my own voice or whatnot. But that all comes with getting more comfortable
Yeah.
with yourself, either as a writer or an actor or an artist or whatever. Because that's part of the gig. You gotta get used to taking notes and changing things up if you have to, and getting angry about it. It's not going to do anything but alienate you from the people that you're working with. So,
Yeah. Check your
anyways,
ego at the door.
check your ego at the door. Yeah.
Well, I promised I would get you out of here in time to get your little ones off to bed. So I want to say thank you so much for being a
Thank
guest.
you.
I learned a lot today. I mean, of course, I'm always learning a lot, but you've been so generous with your time and your advice. And it's been a pleasure to see your face again.
Pleasure to see your face too. Hopefully it won't be another 10 years before, or 8 years before I do.
Yeah, I don't think so. Do you know when Big Nate is it going to air this year or next year?
It's going to air this year.
Great.
We've been in production now almost a year, so we're finally
Wow.
starting to get some stuff back. And it's looking great. I can't go too much into what we're doing, but it's a really sort of neat, kind of unique style that we're doing it in. It's coming out, I think, fall of 2021 is when it's supposed to air, is when we're airing it. On Nickelodeon,
Yeah. All
which
right,
you'll be able to yeah, I don't know exactly where you watch. You watch Nickelodeon either on cable TV, or I think now you're going to be able to watch it on Hulu. But something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. There's also the Noggin app, but I don't know. It seems like they're kind of moving away from that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I know it's all changing. I think Nickelodeon is finally realizing that, we probably should get into this whole streaming thing. It seems popular. So they're doing that. But so it'll be fall. Hopefully we'll know about it. We have done, I don't think this is talking out of turn. We wrote 9 shorts that will come out before the actual show does.
Ooh.
And I don't know when those will be, but those should start airing this summer.
Awesome.
And they're quite fun. Yeah, those are quite
so
fun.
Excited.
Yeah, it's sort of an intro to, this is the show, this is what it's going to be. It gives people a taste. They're short. They're like 3 to 5 minutes long each.
For web?
No. The broadcast.
Streaming? Okay.
Broadcast
and Nickel.
Rad. Yeah. So some of them,
awesome.
there's a whole musical one. There's a whole bunch of fun stuff. Yeah.
You
so
heard
those will all come out
first,
prior
folks.
to the show.
Breaking news.
I don't think, none of that stuff's been announced anywhere yet.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, Mitch, I know you're not super active on Instagram. Is there another way people can get in touch with you? I mean, or just keep in touch and your updates and stuff? Anywhere else, Twitter?
I mean, you could, I guess. I'm not on Instagram as much as I guess I should be. No. I'm on Facebook every now and then. People send me a lot of stuff through LinkedIn, shockingly, which I'm never on, by the way. But I'm always getting stuff through LinkedIn. Facebook, LinkedIn. People contact me. People who don't know me generally contact me either through Facebook or LinkedIn. And I try to, if you do contact me, I try to always respond. So
awesome.
I can't read your stuff. Don't send me anything because I can't legally read anything you send me. But I can do other things. I can answer questions if you got a question.
You can give him a thumbs up.
I can give you a thumbs up. I can help you if I can, I will.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you. All right.
And hopefully we will be seeing you guys next week. Actually, next week we have Elle coming on. She's going to talk to us, another voice actress, and I hope you guys tune in. We're going to be at the same time, same channel, 6 p.m. And thank you, Mitch. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Bye.
See you next week, guys.
Thank you to everybody who listened. Bye.
Stay safe. Stay sane. And talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.